Hi guys, Chris Dubois here. I wanted to get into the second chapter from my book, Holy Holy, a training manual for living a completely holy life that can be purchased on Amazon. Here it is. Can you guys see it? Maybe? All right, there it is. And anyways, the second chapter here is called We Must Be Holy, Living Out of Our Identity. And it's the biblical doctrine of sanctification. So last video I did was on chapter 1, justification, and what that meant. I want to talk about sanctification now. So when it comes to holiness, excuse me, I think it's important that we define what holiness is right from the beginning. So holiness, the Hebrew word for holiness is kadosh, and it refers to a separation from other things. And I'm not going to get into it all right now, but in this chapter I lay it out, and you read the Old Testament, you see a separation, whether it comes to holy objects in the temple, holy water, holy things, the holy tabernacle, holy clothing, all these different things that are holy. All it means is to be set apart. All right? It's to be set apart from the common and to be set unto God for holy purposes. Okay? I have in this book, to summarize, the Old Testament teaching on holiness had to do with being set apart for God's service and avoiding whatever is unholy and displeasing to God, and instead living righteous and pure lives before Him. Now, when we get into the New Testament, the Greek word is hagios, and that refers to two different things. First, it means to be separate from all the sin of this present evil world, and second, it means to be consecrated to God's service. So therefore, holiness means more than just merely doing certain good things and not doing certain bad things, right? Rather, holiness is total dedication, consecration, or surrender to God in complete separation from all that is sinful. And I get that out of a reference from a book by Stanley Gundry on 5 views on sanctification on pages 62 through 63. And this is all laid out in the book. So it's real simple. Holiness is to be set apart from this world and set unto God, or consecrated unto God for holy, impure things or purposes, right? So holiness is a complete separation from all that is in the world, its lust, its evil, its sins. It's a separation from all that is common and unholy and profane, and it's a complete consecration and dedication unto God. Rudolf Otto, in his book, The Idea of the Holy, uses this term called numinous. And what numinous is, it describes the power or presence of God in His holy nature. Numinous has included in its definition the idea of mystery in connection to God as wholly other, and therefore the term holy cannot be strictly defined by man's intellect in reasoning. God's holiness is so other, and it's so beyond this world. It's a cut above, if you will. To be holy means to literally cut. It's a cut above. It's totally different. It's totally other. It's totally separate from anything in this earth, and we can't fully understand it in our intellect. It's a mystery. There's an element of mystery. God is so holy, so other, so different. He's the creator, the all-holy one, and we are to be holy as God is holy. 1 Peter 1, 15 through 16. We're to be holy in all things, the Bible commands us, right? So we're to be other, like God is other. In other words, in this world, we are to be so distinct from this present world and its evil system and its lusts and sinful desires. right? We are to stand as light in a very dark world. Therefore, when people are around us, they're going to be drawn to us in the sense of the life and the joy and the peace and the freedom that we emanate from us, because we're going to be like Jesus, right? And that's what holiness is to be just like Jesus in our mind, with our thoughts, with our heart, with our attitude, our behavior, our motives, right? Our speech. We reflect Jesus inside and out. And people are going to be drawn to that because we're going to have an answer that they're looking for. We're going to have a purpose for our life. We're going to have this peace about us. They're going to be drawn to us in one sense, but they're also going to be repelled by us in another sense, because the purity and the holiness that emanates from our life will convict them of their sin, and it will make them uncomfortable. And the problem is they're going to hate us too. Like Jesus says, don't be surprised if the world hates you because it hated me first. They're going to hate us because we're not going to practice the sin they practice, and we're not okay with it. And our holiness that we walk in will convict them of their sin. So it's a love-hate relationship, right? They're going to be drawn to us because of our love for them, and they're going to see Jesus in our life. But they're also going to be repelled by us because we stand for God's law and His truth and His holiness, and we're going to have conviction in our life, and they're not going to like that because they're going to want to sin, right? They're going to want to live in their lustful, worldly, self-centered life, and we're going to come on the scene and say, no, there's a better way. It's to love God and love our neighbor. It's to walk in holiness, obeying God's laws and commandments, and that He is Lord, and we are not our own Lord and our own boss, that we have another boss. We have a master. His name is Jesus, and every knee will bow before Him one day. And that message isn't popular and isn't widely received by sinners. So this whole chapter gets into sanctification, which is the process of becoming holy and being holy. It's a process. It's a struggle. Not a struggle in the sense that we're always sinning and messing up, but a struggle in order to live it out. Now, sometimes that is the reality. We are constantly struggling with some sort of besetting sin or in distraction or bondage or stronghold or what have you. And it is a constant sinning struggle until we get the freedom and the victory through Christ. But when I define struggle, I mean it takes work. It's not automatic. It's automatic when we receive our resurrected, renewed bodies. It's automatic when we go to heaven. 1 John 3:2, we will be fully like Jesus then. It will be automatic, and we will be sinlessly perfect then. That's the future state when we die and go to heaven as Christians. But on this earth, it's a struggle. It's a battle. We have to meet conditions. We have to cooperate with God. I am not talking a work salvation. I am talking, it's a relationship, it's a partnership. 1 Corinthians talks about us co-laboring. So there is our part, there's God's part, there's a synergy there, and it's not automatic. It's a struggle, it's a battle. But as we do our part, which is faith, God does His part, which is grace, and He gives us the empowerment to walk in victory and freedom. But it takes work. It takes us making good choices. It takes us trusting in Jesus and following Jesus daily. All right. So this whole chapter on sanctification talks about that process. Andrew Murray states this, and I quote this in the book on page 43. To be holy is to be godlike, to have a disposition, a will, and a character like God. The thought almost looks like blasphemy until we listen again. He has chosen us in Christ to be holy. In Christ, the holiness of God appeared in a human life. In Christ's example, in His mind and spirit, we have the holiness of the invisible one translated into the forms of human life and conduct. To be Christ-like is to be God-like. To be Christ-like is to be holy as God is holy. I love that quote. Sanctification, a process, but here's the good news. The more we grow in our intimacy with God, the more we will have his heart and reflect the nature of Jesus Christ. Therefore, the more holy and the more pure we become, the more victory over sin, the more freedom over sin we will have, the less we will sin, the more freedom we will have and victory we will have in our lives, and we will see the effects of that, the fruit of the Spirit, right? Galatians 5:22 through 23, the joy and peace and gentleness and faithfulness and self-control and love, and all these fruit will be displayed in our life. And it'll be glorious testimony to the world that we as Christians not only preach a good game, we walk and live a good game. This is why holiness is such a beautiful word. It's not a negative word. It's not an ugly word. It's not this legalistic thing, but it's not a lawless thing either. There's this healthy balance. It's a heart holiness based on grace that's centered around loving God and loving our neighbor as ourselves. And it's all about a person. His name is Jesus, and reflecting Jesus to a lost and dying world, being the hands and feet of Jesus. And we can only do this by the power of the Spirit and by God's empowering grace. And that's what this chapter is all about. So I want to encourage you guys to get the book, to read that chapter, and by God's grace, apply it so that we can become, according to 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1, completely holy on this earth. We can only do it by God's grace. God bless you guys. Bye now.